So as we were saying earlier, the restrooms are through those doors, and it's the enclave just in the center between those two doors there. Men's room is to the left, women's room is to the right. Just want to give a few parameters here. The only questions that Sheriff Arpaio will be taking will be pertinent to the Senate seat that he is running for. There were a couple of questions for state representatives that we're not doing state representative questions tonight. They did sponsor this, but they are going to talk a little bit themselves, and then the questions will be given to Joe Arpaio. Also, please no talking while people are at the podium. This is just simple manners, and when I was young I didn't have manners, and so I'm hoping that it hasn't continued on through other generations. So, as many of you already know, this is the first in a series of town halls that we'll be doing. The event has been sponsored by your Arizona Legislative District 1 Representatives Noel Campbell and David Stringer. Their purpose for doing this is to keep you, their constituents, informed on important matters while they are in session at the Capitol. So you have an opportunity to actually hear what this candidate believes. And you can avail yourself of that. And so please stay tuned for future dates to be announced by all these methods. So video and live stream are allowed. And so if you choose to video or live stream this, we're fine with that. And at this point, I would like to bring the sponsors to the podium. If you would both step to the podium. This is David Stringer and Noel Campbell. And I'm going to turn it over to David Stringer, who's going to then bring Noel Campbell up, and he will bring the sheriff up. So let's just give them a hand.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here tonight, and it's my honor to be a sponsor, along with Representative Noel Campbell, of this town hall for Sheriff Joe Arpaio. It's also my honor to share the stage this evening with one of America's greatest patriots. As Pete mentioned, the genesis of this event was the desire of Representative Campbell and myself to provide our constituents with an opportunity to hear from Republican senatorial candidates. This is the first in a series of town halls for the 3 announced Republican candidates who are seeking to represent Arizona in the United States Senate. When we planned these events, and there's 3 of them for all 3 candidates, when we planned these events, it never occurred to us that providing a forum for the whole community, for the entire community, for candidates to meet with voters of all persuasions, that would be controversial in any way. But I understand that there are certain quarters, and that in certain quarters there has been opposition to Sheriff Joe's appearance here tonight. So our well-intentioned community event has been turned into something more than simply a town hall for a senatorial candidate. It has turned into a challenge to one of the founding principles of this nation, our First Amendment right to free speech. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and standing up for free speech. You don't have to agree with a candidate to respect their right to be heard. And the right to be heard, the right to express a political view, is also the right of others to hear that view and to decide for themselves whether or not they would agree with the view expressed. I've followed Sheriff Joe Arpaio's career ever since I moved to Arizona about 10, 12 years ago. And one of the first issues to engage my attention was border security and immigration. Arizona, as I think we all know, is ground zero for illegal immigration, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. We are a gateway for illegal entry into the United States. The presence of thousands of illegal immigrants in Arizona has changed the demographics of our state in the space of a generation. Regardless of your views on illegal immigration, there is no question that it has come at a high cost to our state. Our schools, our hospitals, and our jails must provide services both to legal and illegal residents and those who are here illegally. Sheriff Joe Arpaio did not make Arizona's laws, such as SB 1070 and E-Verify. That was done by the state legislature with the support of the governor. But as the sheriff of Maricopa County, it was his job to enforce those laws. Tonight, Sheriff Joe Arpaio will have an opportunity to talk to you about that and anything else at all relating to his senatorial bid you care to ask him about. I encourage you to write down your questions, and we'll give the sheriff a chance to answer them. As I mentioned, this forum has two sponsors, both myself and State Legislator Noel Campbell, my seatmate. Please join me in welcoming Representative Campbell.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all, and I really mean that. Thank you all for coming out tonight. David Stringer and I are happy to conduct this town hall for former Sheriff Joe Arpaio, candidate for the United States Senate. We want our constituents to be well informed, and that is why we will be conducting town halls with other Senate candidates as well. So you can question them and then put the hot seat on them too, just like you're going to do tonight. And that's what democracy is all about. We stand up here as your servants, as your representatives to answer questions. But this is not about myself or Representative Stringer tonight. It's to introduce Sheriff Joe Arpaio to you and let him speak to you and then let him answer your questions. It doesn't get any better than that. Before I introduce Sheriff Joe, I would just like to speak to everyone in the room about the way we conduct this meeting. And I know it's going to be conducted at a very high level. So what I'm asking all of you is to be respectful of one another, respectful to Sheriff Arpaio, and respectful to all of us. No matter what your political persuasion, nothing can be accomplished or solved if we do not first listen to one another. We can start that process right here tonight. And I'm here to tell you that Representative Stringer and I, we sit side by side in the legislature. We get it all the time. I mean, we do. We have other former representatives in the audience, and he knows exactly what we're talking about. So that's the process, and we're here to share that with you tonight. So I respectfully ask all of you, please do not shout or otherwise interrupt the event. If you do, I will have to personally ask you to leave so that the rest of us can enjoy the meeting. And I thank you in advance for your cooperation. Now, as you all know, Joe Arpaio is America's toughest sheriff. He has served an extraordinary 6 four-year terms as Sheriff of Maricopa County. We will never forget Joe's pink underwear program, but did you know he established Hard Knocks High in the jail? It was the only accredited high school under a sheriff in the United States at that time. That's quite a thing. I bet most of you didn't know that. Joe is an Army vet. I bet a lot of you didn't know that either. Additionally, Joe served as a police officer in Washington, D.C. and Las Vegas. Finally, Joe Arpaio served his country as a federal narcotics agent with the United States Drug Enforcement Administration. For almost a decade, Joe was stationed in foreign countries around the world where he combated the illegal drug trade in volatile areas. I know that because I met Joe, he doesn't remember, but I met him in Mexico City when I was working foreign operations for the United States Customs Service. And DEA was the lead agency outside the United States. We know the same people, but I know where Joe was and what floor on the U.S. Embassy he was. He concluded his remarkable federal career as the head of DEA in Arizona. Sheriff Joe Arpaio and his wife Ava have been married for over 56 years. Is that really true, Joe? 6. He deserved 2 medals. That's great. They have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. This man needs no introductions. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Joe Arpaio.
Thank you. Every year counts when you're married. But thank you for your service. And you're kind of controversial, if you believe in the newspaper. You got 2 good legislators here. They know how to fight too for the people. Thank you for that. We're in Prescott, right? Love Prescott. Actually, it's not a town, it's a city, of course, but it's small. And this area personifies what America is all about. And when people run for president, and I was the honorary chairman for George Bush, Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, and of course, been with our president from day one. In fact, I remember they had a rally here, very exciting. But when you travel around the country, I'm not running for president, but I did have a chance with these guys to travel. You can't believe how great our country is, especially when you get into small areas of our country. Nothing against the big cities, but I remember touring Iowa. I don't know if you guys know where that is. I'm sure someone here must be from Iowa. But going from one end to the other, what a thrill it was to meet the people. You can talk to them. And so I got to learn our country even more so doing that. Now, I've been sheriff 24 years. You got to bring up pink underwear.
I did.
You know, I was at the convention. I was on the stage just before the president accepted the nomination. But they prepared my speech and threw it in the wastebasket. It started off, America's toughest sheriff, pink underwear, so I'm not going to talk about that. They gave me 5 minutes to speak. I want to talk about what I want to talk about. So I told them to throw the teleprompter in the wastebasket. I don't like reading teleprompters. So I gave my talk. Actually, I said something, and I asked my wife to do it, and it goes back to President Trump. And I told the whole 60 million people what he did for me. That shows he has a heart, and what he really did for my wife. So I spoke about that in my 5 minutes. My wife came down with cancer when I was in federal court, and I'm not going to get into that situation, on a misdemeanor charge. And if you ever knew the true story, you would never believe it. But one day I'll get that story out. But you're pretty smart. You understand what happened to this sheriff. So I mentioned that to the audience, and my wife came down with cancer. And one of the rallies I was with, I happened to tell them that. I said, my wife watches Fox every day to take her mind off the treatment because she loves you, President Trump. He called my wife, and he's called my wife several times. Nothing against all the other candidates and presidents I helped, but this guy is a little different. So I didn't forget that. And he didn't have to get me, hook me through my wife. I was hooked from day one, July 2015. And that's one reason I want to go to Washington. And I probably would never run for Senate if he wasn't our president. So that's one reason. That's the main reason me taking on this fight to go to Washington. Of course, I'm going there for other reasons too. I'm going there to serve the people of Arizona, which I've been doing for 30 years, by the way, as head of the Federal Drug Enforcement and 24 years as sheriff. So I've been working as a top law enforcement in this state for 30 years. 30 years. And I want to continue doing that in a different situation, which will be U.S. Senator. And by the way, I want to introduce Jerry Sheridan, who was my chief deputy and ran the jails for how many years, Jerry? 12? 12 years. Running the third largest jail system in the United States. 2.5 million people have come through the jails. 2.5 million since I've been the sheriff. Think of that. Big responsibility. In fact, we opened a couple new jails. I opened Tent City right after I took office because I made that promise. When I ran for sheriff, I want to open Tent City. I want to do it with Korean War tents, which we did. It's a great program. Over 500,000 people have come through the Tent City. So that's in the past. I'm not going to go on to everything that was done as sheriff, other than to say I was proud of my employees. There's a thing in management called getting things done through people. You're only good as the people that work for you. So it was a good run. This is something I'm really proud of. Now, I spent all those years with the federal government, but I'm very humble to say that I'm the longest serving sheriff in the history of Maricopa County, which is bigger than 18 states when you add up the population in the area. So it's not easy running year after year, or actually it's 4 years for sheriff, especially when you have a controversial sheriff, which people call me that. They call me other names too, but I'm just telling you one of the nice names they call me. Not conventional, I don't know. So I decided, I told my wife when I lost the general election, I never lost a Republican race. Even this last time I won 40%, the Republicans. I've been going around the country speaking to Republican groups since I became the sheriff. Usually on weekends because I like to be home running the organization. So I've done a lot for the Republican Party. But I've always gone to the people. My secret weapon has always been going to the people. I don't ask for endorsement. Governors and presidents ask for my endorsement, but I don't ask for their endorsement, because my endorsement has always been the people that I serve. And I remember when I introduced Donald Trump at his first rally, I said 3 things, and one, I got a standing ovation. Actually, they didn't, they were already standing, technical point. But I said 3 things. First of all, where's the flag? We were born on the same day, Flag Day. Not the same year, I got him by a few years. Number 2, of course, we talk about illegal immigration. Number 3, I said he's going to be our next president. That was when 17 people were running. I guess I was right on that one. And then I said something to all those thousands of people. I said, there's a silent majority out there. And that's when I knew we was going to win. The silent majority. And he won. So that's the way I've been feeling throughout the. Now I never, running you probably understand that I don't know how you guys do it, but I don't know if you have a campaign manager. But usually when you're endorsing somebody, the manager or the candidate say,
shut us down. We can scream all you want. If there's any Nazis here, it's you. You don't believe in free speech. You do not believe in free speech. And you're disgusting. You're out of order, and you're disgusting. You're stupid also. Worse than disgusting.
Okay, I'm going to have to leave. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats again, and we will continue this. And I just want to say something. Then you go, sir. Just get out there and do it. You know what? This country cannot function with political meetings being disrupted. Can't function. Can't happen. You may not like what you hear, but if you want this country to thrive as democracy, you cannot support these disruptive meetings and trying to shout people down. It doesn't work. And you know that. And I know that. So, once again, I'd like to introduce Sheriff Joe Arpaio to finish his remarks and questions.
All right, thank you. I lost 10 minutes. I got to hop a plane for Nashville at midnight, so, but I'm okay. I can talk another 3 hours. So I don't know who I try to rationalize with them out there, but, I don't know what jobs. They probably don't have a job. It's okay. What we want them to do is vote. They can be disrespectful, but at least if they get out and vote, they're doing something. Whether they vote for me or somebody else, but that's important. So I was on a campaign, if I remember, I was talking a little about politics, about the president. When I used to introduce him, he never would tell me what to say or not to say. His campaign never told me, don't say that, don't say that. So I had to wing it, figure out, hope I don't say anything that hurts his campaign, but at least I was successful 98 times, and maybe that means we're on the same highway together. But we got problems in Washington and in our country. I'm for the president's policies on foreign aid. I love it. when he meets with leaders of foreign countries. I was the regional director in Mexico, Turkey, so I used to meet with presidents and high-level people, even though if you disagree, if there's some type of mutual respect, you can get things done. So when the president calls Putin and congratulates him or meets with him, what's wrong with that? I hope he meets with North Korea, get him in the back room. I'm from Springfield, Mass., where basketball was invented. They got Rodman, the basketball guy, meeting the North Korea guy all the time. I'd recommend that Trump brings a basketball hoop when he meets with this guy, throw a few basketballs in, and talk. You need a negotiator. So there's nothing wrong with negotiating even with your enemy to try to change things. So when people criticize it for going here, saying this, there's a method to his madness, believe me. And that's where I'm going to support him in Washington. I like his trade agreements. I love it when he says, bring the jobs into the United States. I've been with him many times, and this is from his heart. He loves the veterans. He loves the cops. He loves the military. And that's from his heart. And I know him. Someone's shaking their head back there, but you can disagree. I know him. So I want to get to Washington. I want to fight for the veteran, fight for the cops. There's a war on cops. War on cops. So these are issues I'm going to make one of my top priorities. And I will open an office. I think there's a Senate office here. Isn't there, Prescott? Don't you have a Senate office here?
Not at the moment.
Oh, McCain used to have one. Well, this is Prescott has history behind it.
Great.
So I'll probably open an office here, but I'll move to Tucson. Anybody from Tucson? I don't want to make it tough for you, but I'm going to move that one to the border. So I'm going to open an office. Why is everybody laughing? I'm a pretty good negotiator. When I worked under Nixon, I ran an operation, Intersect, closed the border for 2 weeks, almost. We just backed up traffic all the way to Mexico City. Hey, they straightened out. And I took over Mexico City, had the Attorney General of Mexico at my house. They hated us, but I got him on my side. You know how I got him on my side? He liked blueberry pie. And my wife kept pumping out blueberry pie. But I'm pretty sharp. They call it the PX, AFEX. You know, the military go to get cheap booze. I went in there and bought a lot of whiskey. So I got more done giving whiskey to the Attorney General and pie than a big stick. That's how you do it. I never had any problems after that. Never had a problem. I worked with Noriega. I had an office in Panama. I used to be both sides. But I'd rather be on one side and be there than not be there. So when the president meets with foreign leaders, he knows what he's doing. So I got to support him in Washington, to let him keep doing that. You don't have any senators, unfortunately, in this state, U.S. senator. I'm going to be a tough senator, independent, and I'm going to run for 1 term. All these people that run for Senate, the minute they get there, they're raising money for the next. I'm not criticizing anybody, I'm just telling you how it is. So I'm going to be 1 term and do what I can for the people of this. I love this state. I was born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. Don't leave them. That's okay. It's still a nice place. And lived all over the world. I haven't found a place that I like better than Arizona. And I told my wife after I lost, I'm done with politics. I don't even want to talk about it. And then after 3 months, I said, I'm back in it. I was thinking of giving speeches, never thought of running at the time, just getting back in it. And then I decided January to put my hat in the ring. Starting a little late, but actually people know who I am all over the place. So, do you have any questions?
I was about to say, could you take a question too? And I know we're doing written questions. But
We're good. We're good. We're not behind schedule here, so we've got some questions.
Thank you. I just want to ask you, Sheriff Joe, what is your top priority when you get to Washington? What is the #1 thing that you want to accomplish as a new
Okay, the question is, what is your top priority when you get to Washington? What is the #1 thing you're going there to do?
Well, that's a tough one, but let's forget the ones that I run down everything I'm going to do, fight crime and all that. The top priority is believe it or not, to get some people together. I'm pretty good at it. Maybe I'll take the Democrats out and give them pizza and instead of whiskey, beer. You know, but my main priority is to protect the policies and agenda of the leader. I'm an old-fashioned guy. When you work for somebody, whether it's private business or government, you ought to do what your boss wants. So what's so wrong with doing what your boss wants? Now, technically, the president is not my boss because I'm elected. But isn't it great to be an elected sheriff? I don't have to report to you guys or to governor or anybody. But I'd like to get together and make a change. I'd like to get on a judiciary committee. It's about time we have a cop on the Senate. They're all lawyers or whatever they are. So I want to get a law enforcement guy and defend our law enforcement in our country through that venue. So that would be a top, and then open up these offices. And I'll tell you another thing, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Arizona. A lot of time to represent you. And I'll have an open door policy like I do as sheriff. You can come in anytime and try to listen to you and make changes. So that would be my top priority.
Okay, so I'm going to try to move these along, Sheriff. So what motivated you to run for office? In as concise as you can say, what was your motivation to run for Senate? I think you already said it, so you may just recap it.
Well, the motivated was I didn't like what's going on in Washington. You got swamps and garbage and everything else, so I wanted to do something and support Donald Trump. And still remember, I don't have a rubber stamp. No rubber stamp. I sign everything by hand. I'm not a rubber stamp guy.
And that's kind of the next question. If elected, what criteria would you use when you cast your votes? Would you vote according to your personal beliefs or according to the wishes of the people you represent, or both?
Well, I like to, you can't take away your personal history. One thing that has kept me going is I have life experience and common sense. That's how I survive, but I can't. But when it comes down to it, you make your decisions what's right for the people of this country. That's what you do, and you follow the law. So that's what I would be doing.
Okay. This one gets a little personal, but it's kind of the elephant in the room. It's concerning your age, and it was asked very diplomatically going into this. Wanting people to elect you, and your age is a factor to some of the people's thinking, and so obviously you don't think you're too old. Are you going to run one term? They're just kind of wanting to know what's your future in this if you get elected.
Well, I don't know how old you are. I'm not going to ask you. I'll be racial profiling. So if I would say, you want to go around the block? I probably got you by 20 years.
Yeah.
So you want to go around the block? But I would tell you, age means nothing. Right now, I should be the sheriff. If it wasn't for George Soros and the Justice Department, I'd be having a gun right now.
That's right.
I got 2.5 years left as a sheriff with a gun and badge. So what's age got to do? You guys always re-elected me. I was 80 the last time I ran for office when I was 60. I think I did okay. So age means nothing.
Okay.
But they're going to throw, they're already throwing that at me. Let them throw it at me. I talk about my opponents. So let them throw it at me.
And speaking of your opponents, will you debate your opponents?
I don't know. I don't know yet. I'd rather do it this way with the nice people in this room and not waste the time back and forth reading scripts and telling what the campaign manager tells you what to say. I don't do that. I haven't decided yet.
Okay. How are you going to serve all of Arizona, especially those of us not in Maricopa County? I know. Yeah.
I'm not the sheriff of Maricopa County anymore. This is a whole state. I love this state. Isn't it great to be able to do the whole state and just be locked into one county? Well, by the way, I hate to tell you something. I'll take a lie detector test like that gal did against Trump, Stormy, whatever her name is. So don't believe lie detector tests. But anyway, I have one problem, and I hate to say this. I'm too honest, I tell it like it is. That gets me in trouble sometimes. So when I say something, if you don't think I'm going to open an office in Nogales, 100% I said I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it. I don't care if there's Mexican armies or anybody else, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to support the wall because of the drug problem. The drug problem. More than the illegal immigration problem.
Okay. This is a long one, but I can read it well. Your campaign website says you will only support federal judges who enforce the Constitution, amen, and not those who legislate from the bench, but the website lacks specifics. Can you provide an example of judicial decisions you agree with and those that you feel are unconstitutional?
First of all, we should start impeaching judges and get rid of them. Number one. Number two, I can give you 2 names are on my top list. Get this Ninth Circuit, get out of them. They don't even look at my appeals, they hate me so much. Get out of the San Francisco, get this place under another circuit. And I'm not going to get into answer that question. We'll be here all night. But if you knew what happened to me and my chief deputy, you would never believe it in a million years. So I want to get that out. It's very difficult. The media won't cover it, but we'll get it out because you deserve to hear what happened to me can happen to you, and you won't believe it. Believe me.
What will you do to prevent gun violence? Will you support banning assault weapons? 2 questions.
First of all, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I armed 500 posse guys. I went public when they had this shooting in Colorado and got 18 million hits when I said the 250,000 people in Arizona, including you, some of you, have a gun. If someone came in here right now and starts shooting, I would hope someone in this room has a gun and kills the guy before the cops get here. So that's what I talk about the Second Amendment. They want to take away the guns and all this. I think one of my opponents said they're for the style, 18, well, you're going to be 21. No, I joined the Army when I was 18. If I could fight for my country, I can't carry a gun. So, yes. And don't listen to all this garbage about the guns. Nothing against demonstrators around our country, but I wish they would demonstrate that all the kids are dying of drugs in high schools and start demonstrating about that and forget the guns. Yes.
Are you in favor of universal background checks for purchase of firearms?
Yeah, within reason. Yeah, you got to check people out. I don't know. I'm not. I really don't know how far those checks should go, but that's something to study.
What will be your policy about DACA? How will you
Oh,
oppose that?
someone asked that? Was it one of the demonstrators?
Are you still here that asked this question? Raise your hands.
Well, I'm going to give you, in brief terms, my opinion, since I'm supposed to be an expert, 25 to 30 years fighting on the Mexican border. I had 8 nice young people come all the way from Florida several years ago to meet with me. I think they wanted me to lock them up, get some press in my office. But after I got talking to them, just like I like to talk to the demonstrators, I had 3 of them hugging me when they left. Think of that. Now, I don't expect all these demonstrators to hug me. If I could get to them, maybe 1 or 2 would. So here's my thing with the DACA. It's out of the box, but you're getting a senator that does look out of the box and not business as usual in politics. So what I would do, having worked in Turkey, and I remember President Kennedy had a great program out there where people would go and represent the country. It's called the Peace Corps. We have religious groups that go out on missions all over the world to learn about other countries and plug our country. So what I want to do with the DACA is you take all these young people, probably up there a little in the age, you send it back where they came from, deport them. But, wait a minute, but they get to learn what country their folks came from, what they came from. That's good for them to understand. They ought to be proud which country they came from. So they're going to act as ambassadors. They love our country. They're going to tell everybody they can see how great America is. But the catch is, then you bring them back legally across the border with the green card, and they can go through the system. And I don't mean wait 10 years. Come on, maybe in 6 months you can bring them back. And there's no amnesty involved. The two-way street, they get to learn about their country. They're going to appreciate our country even more in certain countries. So that's my idea. Everybody thinks I'm nuts. But you know what? Maybe they'll call me a nutty senator in Washington. Did I answer that?
Yes, and we've got a lot of similar questions here, so I'm trying not to ask the same ones twice. For illegals who do America's hard labor, do you have a plan to allow legal work without citizenship? It's similar to what we just talked about, but it's not DACA. It's illegals who are here working.
If you are here illegally, you have violated the law. You should go back to where you came from. And I say things that are not diplomatic. I get some trouble sometimes, but okay, I'll say it. I go into the fast food restaurants now. Let's think who's working behind the counter these days. A lot of students trying to make money for tuition. I have nothing against the hard workers that come here illegally. They come here to work, a lot of them, but they did it wrong. So send them back, let them come through the system, come back. So I believe in Donald Trump. I believe that we should look at our country first, that we should find jobs for our people, we should manufacture here, and I believe all those policies that he has.
Okay, here's a little bit of a change. Steel tariffs, do you support them?
The what?
Steel tariffs, or the tariffs in particular.
I'll support anything where it stops people from other countries to take jobs and come into our country. All that steel, whatever, should be manufactured in this country instead of China or wherever it comes from. So that's my general concept.
Could I ask a question? That's my question.
Sure.
Are we going to open up the Iron Range in Minnesota so that the ore that the steel is made from
I don't know.
comes from America too?
I don't know that. I'm telling you my general concept, and I get into the technicalities about type of steel. I'll have to study that when I get to Washington, but my general concept is stop bringing stuff in this country, manufacture it here, whether it's steel or automobiles or whatever. Everything I'm wearing now, I would bet you, I would bet you is made from another country. Can't we get somebody to make my suit here in Prescott? There must be someone that can make suits and clothes. I'm getting a little over, but you know what I'm talking about.
Joe, it's Prescott.
What? Oh, I didn't know if you had tailors here. I wanted to play the fence.
Don't try. Don't try. It'll never work. Which do you support more? Public school or, well, this has charter schools, which I think some charter schools are public schools. It's talking about Arizona's public schools are severely underfunded. I believe this is a state issue, though, isn't it? More than it is a federal issue?
Let's hear the question.
I'm sorry?
What's the question?
Let's hear the question.
Okay. Okay. Which will you support more? Public schools or charter schools? Arizona public schools are severely underfunded at the moment. A legislature behind you has taken money away from the public schools. So they're probably talking about you.
Okay. I love these guys. I don't know what they said nice things about me. I got a bad mouth. I don't know. I want to tell you just one thing I'm sure they agree with. Forget how. I have said, by the way, you do know I became a superintendent of schools in the jail. Didn't know I was going to be that. So, I have said in almost every speech for 24 years, we have to take care of our teachers. When I give talks at school, it's sad to see the teachers have to bring in their pencil, their paper, and all that.
Yeah.
So we have to take care, I don't care how you do it, we have to take care of our teachers, give them enough money to survive, to raise their families, because their teachers are critical, believe me. You all know that, you've had teachers. You may have some teachers.
We have abundant sunshine in Arizona. What programs on the federal level do you support to let states like Arizona exploit that resource?
On which deal?
Like solar power.
Solar?
Yeah. Is that even a federal issue? Is that something that the federal issue gets into, or is it state by state? See, some of these questions you're asking are state. And I want to say that the two gentlemen here that are seated will be doing forums and such where you can ask them those questions. And so stay tuned, because they're going to be getting out of session in about 3 or 4 weeks. And then we're going to have them literally answering questions for all of you guys all over the place. So, so this sounds more like a state question to me.
Well, it's about federal policy. It can be a federal question. Federal policy, energy policy on solar.
Of course.
Okay, good.
Anything that will clean the air or save money, and it's the right thing to do, those two issues I'm for. We're in high tech now. We're sending people to Mars. We can't talk about electricity and solar. Come on. So we have to discuss it. By the way, you're lucky you got these two guys, because they're going to call it like it is. At least you got people that will speak truth to you. I don't know which way, but it's nice having them. Yeah, but they're a little controversial when I read the paper, so I say they must be doing something if they're controversial, right?
Would you protect veteran services from being privatized?
You know, that's a good question. I'm a veteran. I used to go to the VA when I was sheriff, visit the veterans. Even years ago, I was very sad what they did to it, and they still don't treat our veterans right. Boy, I would do anything I can to enhance and improve the medical treatment of our veterans. If it means, I don't know, if it means privatize, if it means, I don't know what it means. They just got rid of another guy. Another guy. Can't we get somebody there for a change to really do and correct the problem?
I believe he was a holdover from the previous administration.
He was still hired.
Yes.
Wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
That's another thing the president should do, is get rid of all these Obama people, especially everybody's been after me. They're still there. I'm not criticizing the president. He's got a tough job, believe me. Tough job in Washington with the bureaucracy. The Senate is Mitch McConnell and the Speaker. They don't like the president. A lot of people don't like the president from our own party, which is sad.
This is interesting. Well, will you support a constitutional amendment to ban dark money? I think that was settled in the Supreme Court already, but...
Yeah, well, my opponents have dark money. I have white money. That's from the voter, the people. I raise my money by going to the people. Well, $10 here, 20 there.
So you don't take dark money from APS?
I don't know about AP. I'm not getting into that. I'm not a cop anymore.
Okay. And this is the last one. As a taxpayer, I am concerned about the blah, 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 blah. So, no, this one is not going to be asked.
I have one more, if I may be.
Yes.
Yes. The president just signed a huge budget. I believe it was a $1.3 trillion. It's a very controversial budget. We're running a huge deficit. Could you speak to that? What is your position on deficits, on this massive government spending? And I know you love President Trump. Many of us love President Trump. What is your position on budget, deficit, government spending?
Well, first of all, 2 congresswomen agreed with the budget. Did you know that?
2 congressmen?
Women here, from here. I want to say one's a
From Arizona.
Yeah, agree with that, the president's budget. One's a Republican, one's a Democrat. I won't get into that. That's their opinion, that's okay. But I've always given millions back when I ran federal agencies and sheriff. Millions I would give back when the budget, the fiscal year. Everybody wants to get more money. They want to make, when I was head of the Federal Drug Authority, they wanted me to spend all the money so they could go back to Congress and ask for more money. That's all they want, more money, over and over and over. We should cut the budget, get rid of all the government employee waste. Believe me, I've been one, I know. Streamline it, and try to save the taxpayer money. And when you do spend the money, do it right. Do it right, don't waste it. That's my opinion. Now, when I go to Washington, we'll study it. I don't know, I'll probably have to read 2,000 pages, which nobody reads. They're too busy raising money for the next race. They're going with the lobbyists, all these lobbyists. So that's the way I'll do it.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. I just have one other thing I wanted to do. By a show of hands, we want to see how you heard about this event. How many heard by radio, on the radio? Okay, good number. How many heard, got an email? Okay, even bigger number. Newspaper? 4. No, I'm only kidding. There's a few of you. Okay, how many got an actual flyer, a hand flyer? Oh, that's great. A friend? Anyone? That's excellent. That means every single method that we used got people here. So, social media, yeah, that's internet. Did I not put internet here? No, I didn't. Well, email, but social media. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have to add that. So, anyway, we want to thank you for coming. We thank Joe for coming. We really appreciate you hanging in there through the
So, can I say one thing?
Sure, absolutely.
I want to thank the Arizona Rangers.
Yes.
You should have been my posse, but that's another thing. Who else do we have? All
The Oath Keepers.
Great guys.
Yeah, right here.
I want to thank all of you for making us safe. I want to thank all of you for coming, having the courage to come into this very controversial meeting. And I want to thank all the people that were here, that were kicked out, which they deserve. So maybe next time they may keep their mouths shut and give some courtesy and listen. I feel very sad for them. So thank you, especially the people that took your time off on this weekend and listening to me, and you'll listen to the other candidates too. So thank you.
I want to thank Noel and David also for funding this event. And we already have scheduled one of the other candidates way off in May, and so just we'll use all the methods that we used here to let you know. But we really want to thank Joe again. Let's give him one last hand and send him on his way to Tennessee. That means he's got to go all the way to Tennessee. You're dismissed.